Hi, and welcome to our 2025 quick training about the annual report for local government solid waste and materials management. My name is Sandy Skolachenko. I'm here today with Alex Miller. We both work for the Division of Environmental Assistance and Customer Service within DEQ, and our division is responsible for managing this reporting process. So we'll start with a quick intro, and then we'll get into the report itself. Um, so each North Carolina local government is required by general statute to complete this annual report, and the due date is September 1st each year. And this is really important information for a couple of reasons. It helps us, DEQ, prepare the Consolidated Waste Management Report, which is a summary of statewide landfill and recycling activity that's prepared and submitted to the General Assembly each year, also required by general statute. And then the information that we collect from you on this report is super important for statewide planning, decision making. It can help us with economic development. And then it's also an opportunity to benchmark and compare your programs to other programs in the state, and also compare statewide to other states. And just a reminder, if you are ever interested in seeing the data behind this report or getting an export of information from our database, please feel free to reach out. We're more than happy to share information with you that can be helpful to your program. So I want to start with how to get to the form in the first place. Over the course of this summer, you'll probably receive multiple emails from our team, probably coming from Elise or Alex, and they'll look something like this, and they'll always have a link to get to the report form. So simply click on this link, and it will open your internet browser and take you to the form, which is this. The form is completely online, so you'll enter your responses here, and we'll walk you through each of the tabs, and then we'll show you how to submit at the end.
Thanks, Sandy. So let's just go through this first tab, which is the instructions. You'll see at the top, you'll have a tab for each section of the report. You can link to them and skip to others and go back. So it's an easy way to have some information, put it down and go back. So it just explains the requirements here and gives the instructions for completing the report as well. So as Sandy said, this is a fully web-based report. If you click next at the bottom, it'll continue on previous. You can go back and forth between sections. So that's pretty self-explanatory. One thing we did want to point out is that you can save a draft and come back to your report if you haven't completed it. So when you save a draft, you will click Save a Draft at the bottom of the page, and the web page will prompt you for your email address. Make sure that you put in your correct email address, as we have no way of recovering a draft report if it's under the incorrect email address. So, as you see down here, you can click Save as Draft. We'll click that. You can type in your email. We're going to use Sandy as a guinea pig. I can spell her name correctly. And then you create a password. I'm just going to do something easy and do 4 zeros. And save it. And this will prompt it to send an email to your email address that you definitely entered correctly. And then you can go back to your save draft. All right, and then Sandy's gonna check her email just to make sure that it went there.
I'm going to wait patiently while my email comes to my inbox. Here it is. And just to show you what it looks like, it'll come from this email address, laserfiche.ncdnr.gov. It's pretty straightforward. Your draft has been saved with a link to click on and continue the form where you left off. If you don't see an email come through, definitely check your spam folder in case it doesn't recognize this email address. And as you can see on the screen that Alex had up, you're also able to get back into the form when you save it.
All right, so we're going to return to our draft. And one tip I would say is if you know you're going to have to come back to it later, save a draft as soon as possible so you make sure you get the email saying your draft has been saved and you can log back in. It would be a shame to go through 8 sections, you save it as a draft, and then you accidentally entered your email wrong and you cannot recover that. So we're back into the form, and so that password was correct. So make sure you choose an easy password, something you'll remember, write it down so you can always get back to your draft. So once you get to the end of the form, you can click submit on the very last page. You will give an electronic copy of your report. And we will get an electronic copy of your report. Once you submit it, you cannot go back and edit it. So make sure everything is correct before you do the final submit on the last page. We will review each report and contact you with any questions or clarifications. The review process for us takes several months, so you may hear from us several months down the road. So just so you're aware. And some helpful information down here. We have links to your annual reports from previous years if you want to see how you've answered previous year's questions. We have a commonly asked questions page here. If this training video doesn't answer all of your questions, you can go there. We have a link to this training video that you can refer back to. We also have a link to a blank PDF that you can use when you're gathering your data. Feel free to download that and print it off. But remember, the final report needs to be submitted online. And then we have my contact information and Elise Treywick's contact information. If you have any questions about the form or any question on the form, please reach out to one of us. We'll move on to the next section just by clicking next. This is the general information section. So you'll complete this information, local government name, your name completing this report, and then your solid waste and recycling status. Question at the very end, did your local government provide, contract, or arrange for any solid waste services in FY 24-25? It's very important that you answer this question correctly. So that means, did your local government have any sort of solid waste service? That includes garbage, recycling, or yard waste. Yes will take you to the full report. If you select no, it automatically skips to the end of the report because the program assumes that none of these questions apply to you. So please answer this one correctly so we don't have to track you down and make sure that this info is correct. All right, so we're going to click yes. Okay, we're going to skip through this one because this section is pretty self-explanatory. But again, if you have any questions about it, please feel free to contact us. And then we're moving on to section 2A, your recycling programs. So most of these questions are yes or no questions. And I did just want to point out, now that we have them here, there are these little question marks. They're called tooltips. And if you have any, there's some additional information here. So did your local government promote home composting? And here we've defined home composting refers to this explanation here. So if you see any of these tooltips, just hover over it and you can see kind of the additional information that we've provided. Looking at this public recycling services question, you're going to choose which of the following best describes your recycling program for the past fiscal year. 1, my local government did operate or contract for a recycling program. 2, my local government did not operate or contract for a recycling program itself, but did participate in a recycling program sponsored by another local government. For example, your local government did not have its own recycling program. However, your residents were able to participate in a countywide subscription program. That's just one example. And then 3, my local government did not operate, contract, or participate in any recycling program. So choose one of those 3 options that best applies to you. And then looking at curbside recycling program, for this question, we're going to say yes. And in this form, several questions, once you answer yes, we'll continue on with additional questions. So for instance, after you select yes for your curbside program, we ask additional questions on who collected the recyclable materials. That could either be your local government employees, a private contractor, franchised hauler, or other. And below that, we have some additional information defining a private contractor or a franchised hauler. So continuing down here, you have your total number of households in your jurisdiction, number of households that receive curbside recycling collection, number of households that regularly participate in the curbside recycling program. An estimate is fine, just do the best that you can with this last question. What sector of your community was served by a curbside recycling program? Residential, commercial, industrial. You can choose 1, 2, or 3 of those options. How frequently were just the residential curbside recyclables collected? So in this, we're strictly speaking for households, no downtown areas, no commercial or industrial areas. Now going through the rest of the questions, going to this last question under curbside, how do residents enroll in curbside recycling service? What we're looking for here is if residents are automatically signed up to participate in the curbside recycling service, or if they have to take an extra step in order to be signed up. And then going through, completing the rest of the section. It's pretty straightforward. We will click next and go to 2B, recycling tons. So this will be your data for all recycling programs collected for this past fiscal year. We ask that you report these in tons and not pounds. So you have 2 options. You can say, yes, I collect commingle, but want to report it separated, or you can report your recycling tonnages as commingled tons, whichever you prefer and whichever you get your information from your recycling processor. So if you're looking in both the commingled and the separated tables, you have curbside tons, drop-off tons, and other tons. And then this will total up automatically from these 3 columns. So if you look at the tooltips, the curbside tons is recycling from any curbside collection programs. The drop-off tons is recycling from drop-off locations such as convenience centers. And then this other tons is recycling from other entities such as schools, multifamily, away from home, commercial, or other accounts if you track this tonnage separate from your normal curbside or drop-off programs. For example, some multifamily areas collect it within their normal curbside collection programs, and that can be included in the curbside tons. We have the rows for the common commodities over here. And then we also have other recycling tonnages. However, just note that you do not report your yard waste, your tires, HHW, used oil, batteries, or other special recyclables in this section. There is a separate section for those materials. We have C and D, and then we have a area where you can list other recyclable materials that weren't covered here and that won't be covered in the other special recyclables section, which again are listed down here to not report in this area. And then down here, they will automatically total and you'll see your tonnages down here. So we'll click next.
All right, moving along to our special recyclable section. This is referring to materials that need some sort of special handling. They're not collected curbside or mixed in with household recycling. They're typically collected in special areas at convenience centers, transfer stations, or landfills. So you'll fill in this table as applicable to your local government's collections. And I do want to point out a couple things on this table. I do want all of the information provided in pounds in this table. So if you don't receive your reports in pounds, if you receive it in a different unit, we have provided some conversion factors down at the bottom of the table that could be helpful. So for instance, if you receive your motor oil reports in gallons, you can convert those to pounds. Or if you have just a certain quantity of lead acid batteries, you can convert those to pounds. Feel free to reach out if you need any other assistance with this. And then two new items that we've added to this table, new as of this year, are lithium ion batteries. So these are typically rechargeable batteries. We're curious special collection of those. And if you collect them along with other batteries, you can click whichever row is most applicable to your program and just put a note in the comments section in number 10 tab. We'll talk about this more in a minute, but this comments box is really to provide additional information for anything throughout the report. And to communicate any kind of major changes that your program had this year compared to last year. So asking about lithium ion batteries, and a note here, one of the reasons we are asking about these in particular is because there is a landfill ban on lithium batteries that goes into effect December 1, 2026. Those will be added to our list of landfill ban materials in North Carolina. And then the other material that we've added this year is solar panels, just as another emerging waste stream. Curious to start understanding where local governments have recycling opportunities for those. So scrolling down the next section asks about household hazardous waste programs. So if you do operate a household hazardous waste facility or temporary event, you can answer the follow-up questions here. And just a note to please make sure that you're not double reporting any information. So if you collect, let's say, lithium ion batteries as part of your HHW events, and they're included in the total pounds of HHW that you report here, please make sure you're not also reporting those pounds up above, because we want to avoid any double counting in this section. All right, moving on to the next. Next, we have our yard waste section. And you'll be prompted to answer the questions if you say yes, you have a yard waste program. And I want to talk a little bit about this table, which we've made a few changes to since last year. So first off, we are asking for all yard waste to be reported in tons. And we have renamed our row headings here, although we're asking for the same information. So we want to know if your yard waste went to a facility that was managed by your own local government. Those tons would be reported in this row. If you send yard waste to another local government's facility, for example, you're a town that takes yard waste to the county facility, you would report in this row. And if you take yard waste to a private facility for mulching or composting, they would go in this row. We added a little more clarification about the LCID row. We're really looking for yard waste that does get landfilled at an LCID. I know there are quite a few mulching operations that happen at permitted LCID landfill sites. So if your yard gets mulched, we would appreciate if you can include that in some of these, in whatever appropriate category up here fits best, your facility or another local government facility for mulching. And that's because we don't count this yard waste as a recovery activity when we do all of our totals for the consolidated report. And then we have other options down here. If yard waste is taken direct to an end user, like without doing any processing to it, and then sent for energy or fuel use. Usually this is boiler fuel markets. We did also add a secondary table down here, in particular for our local governments that were impacted by Hurricane Helene and may have had to manage yard waste in some alternate ways this year. So if you click yes, I've been impacted by a storm event, you will see the options in this secondary table. And we've provided some options to report yard waste as still staged and stockpiled, like yet to be processed at one of these type of options above. So if you still have yard waste on site that the destination is to be determined, you can report it here. And we know there has had to be some incineration, for example, through air curtain incinerators. So if you need to report that, you can include that here as well. And if there's any other alternative management pathways that don't neatly fit into these boxes, please reach out and let us know or put a note in the section 10 comments if you need to. All right, next section.
So next we have our solid waste, aka your garbage collection section. We did want to note, we added one option here. If you select, did your government operate or contract for curbside solid waste collection? Yes. Go through and answer each question. Under what type of collection container is used, we changed these options a little bit. Government provided carts, so you are providing the carts to the residents. Hauler provided carts, if you are a contracted hauler or providing the carts. Resident provided containers, so we know some residents use their own containers for garbage collection, and then bags. So these are just a little bit different from last year, so wanted to point that out. And then we continue on asking about bulky waste and white goods services. There'll be an additional section on white goods services, so you can offer some additional information further down this form. Commercial solid waste collection, did you provide solid waste collection services for commercial entities? And then any solid waste convenience sites. So again, when we're referring to this solid waste section, we're referring to your garbage or trash. Then the next section is education. Did just want to point out that we added in here, we would like to know if you utilized any of the Deeks provided templates from Recycle Right NC or use the Food NC. And then you can click each link here to see some of the outreach that we have available that you may have used if you just needed a refresher. Moving on to everyone's favorite section, the budget section.
Yes. the budget section. So I want to just touch on a few portions of this section. We asked the question about how you use your solid waste disposal tax distributions. One note is that every local government that does provide any type of solid waste service does receive solid waste disposal tax distributions. So if you need information about your distribution amounts, we have a link to the Department of Revenue website. You can cross-check their spreadsheet. And as general statute requires, those funds must be used for your solid waste activities. So this gives you an opportunity to confirm that here by telling us what they're used for. Here, 7.3 will allow you to select what methods you use to fund your solid waste programs. So you can check all that apply. And then we did make a few changes to the household fees section. So we want to know if you charge an annual household fee to your local government, specifically for any solid waste services, and it might be on a monthly basis as well. And if so, we want you to tally that up to give us the annual amount that each entity gets charged. So the change we made to this table is moved this option for a combined fee up to the top. So what we're looking for here is any household fee that might cover multiple services. We're noticing a lot more that you may charge what's called a solid waste fee, but that helps cover the cost for garbage and recycling services. So in that case, it would be appropriate to report that as a combined fee. And then down below, we've broken out fees for separate services, just a fee. We're calling it garbage to avoid any confusion with solid waste, which is sometimes used as more of an umbrella term. So a fee that just helps cover the garbage or trash service. A fee that is separate for recycling can be reported here. If you have an annual or monthly fee for yard waste service, you can report it here. Same is true for bulky waste. However, we're not looking for like per pickup charges. So you might say, we'll come and pick up yard waste at $10, per pickup upon request. We're not looking for those type of fees here. We're just looking for, an annual fee. For example, you can pay $80 and have a yard waste cart if you choose to, that'll be serviced on a regular basis. That's the type of fee we want here. And then the opportunity to report availability fees, most commonly charged by counties for the availability to use convenience centers, for example. And then all of these fees will tally to the total at the bottom, so make sure that looks appropriate too, and you're not, double reporting something. This section allows you to report the total cost for any contracts you have. So contracts for solid waste, recycling, or combined services. And then section 7.4 is our full cost accounting section. This is another requirement per general statute that all local governments conduct full cost accounting and inform your users of such costs. So we are fully aware that local governments have many different ways to meet that requirement and do their budgets. And this table probably does not exactly serve the needs of anyone who's doing the report, but we'd ask that you fill this in to the best of your ability, breaking out to the extent you can costs for municipal solid waste. Again, we mean garbage here, recycling, and yard waste services as applicable. So you'll fill out the number of households that you serve. And we've said household/customers in case your programs include something like commercial entities or schools, and it's all kind of lumped together in your budget. You can increase that as needed. And then the tons that were collected, and I'll just show you to illustrate how some of our calculations work out. Then we have costs for collection and costs for disposal. You may have these broken out separately. However, if you're not able to parse these out, you just have one total cost for your garbage service, we ask that you put it in collection cost. And feel free to check out our tooltips with some more details about what type of costs are appropriate to put in each column. So I'll put some numbers in here. That's not realistic. But you can see that our cells will then calculate a cost per ton managed and a cost per household or customer. So if you have questions as you're filling out the budget table, please feel free to reach out and ask us. Again, please just fill it out, to the best of your ability based on how you do your own budgets. And at the end, we have an opportunity to put the full cost for operating particular facilities if you operate those, a landfill, transfer station, a yard waste facility, or a recycling facility. Section 8 is for counties only, so you'll skip through this if you're a municipality. If you're a county, you'll then be prompted to answer 2 more sections about white goods and scrap tires. And this is also, mandated by legislation that only counties report these. We have a few examples of municipalities who operate white goods or scrap tires programs. In those instances, we ask that you provide your information to the county and allow them to report the information to us. So we won't go through these in too much detail. We do pass the information collected in 8A and 8B to our colleagues in the solid waste section who manage the white goods and scrap tires programs. But of course, as we've said, please reach out if you have any questions. Section 9 is about disaster planning and preparedness. And the questions are pretty straightforward, and we haven't made any changes to this section since last year. And section 10 is our comment box. We offer this here for you to just put anything in here that's helpful to explain some of your answers or make notes where it was difficult to fit your information into, the options that we provided you. Alex mentioned that we review each and every one of these reports, and we definitely read those comments and rely on them to make sense of some things that might have changed from previous years or some things that don't quite fit neatly into our form. So please feel free to use this section. And we also welcome you to offer any explanation about major changes that your program has experienced since last year. That's really helpful for us to know as well. Otherwise, we'll be calling to ask you to explain something to us, and we might still do that anyway. One other note about the comments is our staff also uses this box. So when we review your reports, if we make any changes based on conversations with you, we'll make a little note of what we edited. So you'll see that in the final approved version as well. So when you're ready to submit your report and you've checked that all your information is correct, it's time to press the submit button. And it does take a while to load. So again, patience. Let me fill in these fields so it doesn't give me an error. We have just a few required fields. Oops. All right. So as your report is being submitted, just a reminder, you will receive an email that has a PDF copy of your submitted report. In just a second, you'll see an option to download it from the browser as well, or print it. You're welcome to do that. And then we will be reviewing your report. And we have a note here. You will email with the final approved version of the report attached to the PDF. And it's possible that we will have made some updates or modifications to your report after reviewing. So please save that one as your final for your records. I'll show you what the email looks like. It's still coming through, but I have an example one. So again, it'll be from this laserfiche.ncdnern.gov, and it will say your report has been received for your local government, and you'll receive the PDF as an attachment. And here it is, and you can save that for your files. When we send the final approved version, you'll get another email from the same email address, and the subject will say approved, appropriate fiscal year, solid waste materials management report. So that completes the process. Once you've hit submit, you're done unless you hear from our staff with questions or confirmations related to your report. I'll pull up our contact information just as a reminder. We're more than happy to talk through questions with you and appreciate you reaching out if there are things that you're not sure about. So thank you for listening to our training. You can access the recording anytime from the instructions page. And we thank you for your time for filling out the report.